Welcome to the Independent Learner Podcast. Here we talk honestly about what it means to raise curious, confident learners outside conventional school. Brought to you by Mosaic, we share real conversations, practical ideas, and honest stories from people living learner-led lives every day. Let's dive in. Today, we're talking about something that matters to almost every family considering self-directed learning, but that we don't always name out loud: money. Self-directed learning can offer freedom, flexibility, and a more humane rhythm for families. But it also comes with real economic questions, especially around time, childcare, learning spaces, materials, the income trade-offs that often come with stepping away from conventional systems. In this episode, I'm joined by unschooling mom and author June Duran for a practical, honest conversation about what families are actually paying for, how they make it work, and the creative models people use to build something sustainable over time. If you're looking for a realistic insight rather than an idealized story, you're in the right place. June, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Let's jump in. Can you share a little about your family and how you found your way to unschooling self-directed education?
Sure. So I currently have 5 kids, ages 16 down to 7. And when I had my oldest, I was in a community that really idolized, I guess, homeschooling. It was kind of the thing to do. So, which is kind of odd in the country. But so I always had this idea about homeschooling being a good thing to do. So I decided to give it a try by starting with a homeschool hybrid program. So they're called universal model schools. That was what this co op was aiming to be at the time. They weren't quite there yet, but they had a teacher. And so we signed up my oldest for a 2-day-a-week program. So it was all day, 9 to 3, 2 days a week. And she struggled with that program. Struggled. We thought that she would thrive, that she was very social, like wanted to be there. And she did okay for the first few months, but then there was a teacher change mid-year. And after that, we would sit in the parking lot with her for like an hour. Sometimes there wasn't a administration. There was only the teacher with the classroom with the other students. So when she would run out the door, the teacher couldn't like follow her. There was no really support staff there. So we made it to the end of that year. It was rocky the rest of the year, but we made it through. And even getting up, it was a late start co-op, and I just had an oldest child who did not conform, no matter what I did, to the kind of traditional sleep schedule. Getting up every day was very difficult, even though it was later than most schools start. So we decided the next year to take the year off because she was not at the age cutoff. She was under that cutoff to need to have records and to submit documents. So we decided to take the year off. I was having my 4th child. So we took the year off. We just did a lot of reading, went to parks, museums, all of the things, the library, did all of those things. We were still in Boston at the time. And we were going to send her to a private school the following year because I still wasn't sure that I could actually homeschool. I wasn't sure that I could do it. And we actually even put down a deposit on this private school. But then we learned that we were going to be moving mid-year the next year. And I also really still had this desire to homeschool. And so I had a conversation with my husband. He was still picturing like the denim jumpers, like massive bus, crazy, brand of homeschooling. But he's like, I think you can do this. Like he gave me kind of the confidence I needed. So even though we lost our deposit on the private school, we decided we already knew she didn't do well with change, and pulling her out mid-year would not have been good for her. So I jumped in. I was like, how much can I mess it up? It's only first grade. I'm just gonna try. So I ordered like a big box curriculum. The time it was Sunlight, which is like a very heavy read aloud program. Their secular component is Bookshark. And it was just a lot of read alouds, basically. So I got the curriculum and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And on the first day, she was not having it. Even I was trying to do the like Saxon math kindergarten program. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like, why am I doing this for like first grade? Like, this is ridiculous. So I ended up tossing Saxon math the first day. I gave her some phonics pages to finish up from her curriculum at the homeschool hybrid. And she chose to sit and stare out the window for 45 minutes instead of do these worksheets. And so at that point, I was like, okay, something has to be different. So I, she did love reading. So we read aloud most of the books that were in that big box curriculum. We did some science experiments. We went to museums. We did parks, everything we had been doing the previous year. So we ended up falling into what I like to call a relaxed homeschooling, what I like to call relaxed homeschooling, because both of my parents were in education. And when I brought up the term unschooling, which is kind of another word for self directed education, they flipped out. And I was still very much in a people pleasing, go with the flow, don't go against the authority place. And so I was like, oh no, we're just relaxed. We're relaxed homeschooling. But really, we were unschooling, except for the moments when I would have a little bit of a panic and be like, "Here's the workbooks. We have to learn this stuff." And we did do like school time for a while. We did reading aloud history and reading aloud math, and um, but eventually, so we kept up with that relaxed homeschooling. We joined a wild and free group. Went to museums all the time. But then in I think she was about 6th grade, I was kind of looking over like, "Oh, what did I miss in the math curriculum?" And looking at it all, I was like, "Oh, fractions. We haven't done fractions." So I asked her, you know, would you like to do fractions with me this year? This is something you've missed in kind of what you should know by this time." And she said, "Okay." And she was very much still in like an internalized, we did not know she had internalized PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance or pervasive demand for autonomy. It's something that can come along with autism and ADHD. And she reluctant, she did it. She went along with it for a while, but then she started having panic attacks during the fractions lessons, and I was like, "Why am I doing this? This is not worth it. Why am I pushing this?" And so at that point, I really threw in the relaxed homeschooling label and was like, "We're just gonna follow your interests, and we're just gonna unschool." So that's really how it came to it. It was my oldest paving the way uh, for self-directed education, and now I would say I'm fully confident in it 10 years later. So,
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
When when did the financial side of this become real for you? Was there a moment when you thought, "Okay, we really need to map this out"?
Yes, there was definitely a distinct moment. I had my 4th child. We were homeschooling, reading aloud, museums, parks, all the things, loving life without school. And as I had my 4th child, I was like, "Wow, I really wanna do this long term." Like, I can see us doing this long term. And up until that point, this is a long story, but my husband had been on staff with the church for a while, so we were not making very much money, and I was into the extreme couponing, try to figure out how to save all the money, and I wasn't working. And I knew what that life was like for 5 or 6 years. We were on state health insurance, which was great, but we had WIC, but I was like, "I don't wanna do this forever, like, I don't wanna live this life forever." So he re-entered, civil engineering. We ended up moving from Boston to Raleigh, and I knew that I didn't wanna do this forever. So I discovered blogging and online, business through a blog that I followed. She said she made money doing this, and I was like, "You can make money blogging?" And I knew that I wanted to redirect all of my energy I'd spent saving money into making money, in a creative way that was flexible and able to fit into our lifestyle. So that's when I knew that I wanted to do it long term. My oldest was 7, almost 8, and I knew that we needed to figure out a different way.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. When families who might be listening to this, they ask, "Can we afford this?" What do you think they're really asking?
Hmm. I think that they're thinking about the future and they're thinking about long-term costs. They're thinking, what if I pull my child out and we homeschool for a year? Because anyone really, you can do anything for a year. A lot of people can figure out how to make it work for a year. But then you pull your kid out, say you love it, your kid loves it, then you're like, now what? What I don't want them to love it and then have to send them back and then have to re-enter the workforce or figure out, how we're going to reshift our whole life. So I personally think people are thinking about the future a lot. Obviously, there's also the immediate, like, how do we live? How do we shift our whole lifestyle to fit around this alternative? And how do we fit in all of those things? Where, like, if they're working, maybe they're going part time. Yeah, you're basically changing your whole life to homeschool.
Mhm. What are the big cost categories that maybe people in general that you've seen, or maybe you didn't realize at first?
Well, obviously, there's the income loss. That's huge. Most people go into it knowing that there's going to be some decreased income, especially if you came from a dual income household previously. But I think too, one thing I see a lot of people missing is retirement. Like, people don't think about retirement. And wow, we're going to retire one day, and especially depending on how many kids you have. Like, I have a lot of kids. We're going to be doing this for quite a while. And there are no loans for retirement, most financial gurus like to say. And I think a lot of families don't think about how are we going to afford to contribute to retirement and reduce our income. Also, I think, um, yeah, like, a lot of the things with staying home, like, your utilities are higher, your groceries are higher, everything is higher, when you're home all day, most days.
Yeah, that makes sense. What with that said, what trade-offs did you and your family have to make early on, and which ones surprised you?
So, I think the biggest way that we had a trade-off was having 1 car. So, now my husband works from home full time, but when we lived in Raleigh and we were homeschooling, he went into work every day. And so we would have to, if we wanted to use the car to, like, go to museums or go to park meetups, we would have to drive him to work. So we'd have to get up in the morning, get everyone in the car, drop him off at work, pick him up at the end of the day. And with when you have a lot of kids, that's a big deal. And what was big deal for him, like, he couldn't just do his thing, and get out the door when he wanted to, and he had to kind of, wait for all of us to be ready, and he couldn't leave work when he wanted to. So, that was one of the biggest trade-offs that we made, and we still have 1 car to this day. We keep we keep trying to save up for a second car, and then the house says, "No, fix this instead." Or our current car, "Keep your current car working." So, we just decided, "Okay, we're gonna keep 1 car working as long as we can." Um, the things that surprises us, I guess the biggest thing that surprised me about unschooling is, what if you have a kid whose interests you aren't sure that you can financially support? So, say, this has never been my kids, but say you had a kid who loves horses and horseback riding. Like, that's a very expensive sport to be into. And or anything else, like sports, like, say they wanted to play a travel team, like, that's very expensive. So a lot of it has been how to fit the philosophy with your finances, because the whole idea is that you're supporting their interests, you're, giving them what they need to thrive, but can you give them what they need to thrive?
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I totally hear that. What are some of the common ways that you've seen or you've taken on to reduce costs while
Mhm.
keeping learning and the learning opportunities and the pathways rich and fulfilling for your 5 kids?
Yeah. So I think the biggest things have been, again, I mentioned it already, but to be a one-car family, which is a big sacrifice and not doable for everybody. We also are pretty committed at this point, although sometimes I regret it, but to buy used cars. So our car is like 14 years old. We are just keeping her going. She has 150,000 miles. And yeah, just keeping that in working order. Housing costs are, I think, so let me back up. Most financial advisors will tell you to focus on the big three. Like it's not your coffee or your eating out that's really going to hurt you. It's your housing, your cars, health insurance. Um, those are really the three big things. And so with the house, we were fortunate enough to buy a house before the pandemic and or right at the peak, the beginning of the pandemic. So our housing costs are lower than most. That is a really tricky one right now to figure out how to make that work. But I have seen families get pretty radical, like moving in with family, um, having a tiny home, like on family's land, living in an RV. That's not something we could ever do, but I've seen families make it work who really want to make it work, and they've found creative ways. Um, with the health insurance, one of the ways that we have made things work, so we have been on state health insurance before because our income qualified us to do so. But in our current place, some of our kids qualify for Medicaid, and we have applied for that. Some of our kids, our income level also qualifies us for reduced um, payments, like a percentage off within our health network. And a lot of people aren't even aware that that exists. So 2 years ago, we had like everything is going up, as everyone knows, the cost of everything. So, the ER copay used to be 125, now it's 250. So we had my husband was having some health problems. So we had a couple, not huge, but big bills for us. And so we called the hospital and like the network, and they said, "Oh, you should apply for financial aid." And I had no idea you could even do that. So we applied and we got 90% off our like doctor visits. So we would use our insurance and then they would give us 90% off the copay. So it costs us like $5 to go, $3 to $5 to go to the doctor. And then bills like emergency room visits or hospital visits were 50% off. And we continue to qualify for that. Like I continue to apply, you just reapply. So I think that people really need to start taking advantage of anything that they can that fits their income level. Like I've been on WIC. We pay taxes into this stuff and we're not sending our kids to school. Like we pay taxes into schools. So it took me a while at the beginning. I was really raised in a do it yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps place. And so it was very difficult for me to even apply for WIC, which gave us, free food for nursing and pregnant mothers. Not all of it free, but supplemental um, food. And but now that I've really shifted my mindset, if you qualify, why not? Why not apply? And those are the
Absolutely.
biggest three that you can save on. So if you can find ways, like our old cars have been, I mean, we repair them. Our kids are like, the car needs another repair. We're like, yes, this is what having an older car looks like. But they are safe, they are reliable as long as you stick with brands that are safe and reliable. Um, yeah, so if you can save on those big three, that's the biggest thing. Otherwise, we are part of a homeschool co-op right now, so I teach some classes there and get a discount for teaching the classes. If you can take advantage of libraries have so many free things, especially if you're in big cities. When we lived in Boston, you could sign up for museum passes for free. And so aquarium passes, like zoo passes, all the things you can get for free. And there's so many free homeschooling groups. We are part of Wild and Free for a long time, and they have different chapters across the United States. And that's just a free get together, like nature based socialization and community. So they're everywhere. If you can look, you can find it. Things for free and cheap.
The things that you might be paying for, online classes or a program or something like that, what makes them worth it to you and your family?
So, yeah, that's always been tricky, especially with 5 kids. We're having to constantly juggle what is worth it. So for when it's a combined socialization plus, um, plus diving into learning, that's what makes it worth it. So my oldest had a very difficult pandemic, that led to a lot of social isolation, and Um, I continued to offer things over and over, so always offer, and she always said no. Like, "Do you wanna do this class? Do you wanna do this?" In person, and she would say, "No, no, 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 no. Online classes, no." But then recently, there was an art class that was starting up that's a 5-month, once a week, art kind of art 101 class, and I offered, and she said yes, and I was like, "Okay." And so when my kid wants to leave the house and it's in art is her primary interest, that's what makes it worth it. Like, it's a little bit pricey, but it's only 5 months, like, it's not forever. I really love short-term, commitments. So, one of my kids plays soccer. It's 2 seasons. It's, 10 weeks. But yeah, if it can be their interest plus it gets them out of the house, that's when it's really worth it to me. So we're willing to pay for this co-op because it's an awesome community. Like, it's a secular inclusive co-op, and my second child has made so many friends and looped in my oldest to his friend group. Um, and they can choose their classes, so it's very self-directed education, friendly. They can choose what they want to do, and yeah, so I think for me, when it's in person, it's a lot more worth it. We have not had a lot of success with online classes like OutSchool, or things like that, mostly because maybe it's just my unschooling kids or my self-directed education kids, they like to dabble. So when they're done, they're done. Like, they dip their toe into an interest, and if you sign them up for, like, a 10-week class, you're probably gonna be sad. Like, because 'cause they're probably after 3 weeks gonna be like, "Oh, I'm done. I'm good." And while there is a lot of, not I don't rhetoric's the wrong word, but there is a big push in the self-directed education, uh, niche, I guess, to not care if your kids quit things. Um, and I see where they're coming from. I had one kid quit an activity, and we, encouraged them to talk to their coach directly. We were like, "Okay, you can quit." It was right before, like, a tournament or something. Um, and he ended up talking to the coach, but it really marked him for a long time. Like, he was very hesitant to try things and to commit to something, because he was afraid he couldn't get out of it once he did that. But on the other hand, we're not all made of money. Like, most of us are middle class to lower middle class. I mean, is there even a middle class anymore? I don't know. And so, like, I get it, but I'm also we're not made of money, and it is very difficult for me as, like, a frugal person to pay for a full class, um, and then have a kid quit midway and just be honky dory and like, "Sure, try things, yay." And so we do much better when it's like an app that you pay for 1 month. So, like, Simply Piano or Simply Art, when we pay for 1 month for them to try it, or like a language learning program. And then if they wanna continue, great. If not, it's a low cost investment. That's why we are much more comfortable investing, in activities that both support their interests and get them out in the world.
Yeah, yeah. What about for families who they maybe they're single parents or they both work, right? Um, what is your what have you seen? What is your advice for families, particularly around childcare or how to embrace this idea of independent learning when they both work?
Yeah. I've seen families really, again, find lots of different creative solutions. There is actually a Facebook group called Working Homeschool Moms, which um, is run by an old blogging friend of mine, Jen McKinnon, I think is her last name, but you can find it. It's massive. It's like 20,000 or more moms, and all sharing creative ways that they're making it work. So I think that I've seen families both work. and maybe they have childcare, and then they homeschool at night or on the weekends. Um, maybe their nanny or their babysitter is really in tune with their philosophy and is able to support some of those interests during the day when they're watching them. I've seen one parent find remote work, and they're able to kind of be home with the kids, and still they're having to work, right? So they find remote work, and then again, but they're having to do the same thing, which is to, spend deep time with their kids at night and on the weekends. Others have built online businesses or businesses that can be worked around their kids' schedules or kids can come along with them. So maybe they nanny for another family. Maybe they are a thrifter and they resell things. So they take their kids along with them on their thrifting shopping trips. Or I know a lot of homeschool moms who are blogging. Like it doesn't make as much money as it used to in this world of AI. Some people are still doing really well with it and they build up businesses. I think sometimes it definitely takes some advance thought and preparation. Like you don't just drop everything and all of a sudden be able to homeschool. Like sometimes families are thinking ahead and they really dedicate a year to paying off all of their debt or building up an emergency fund so that they feel like they can have some stability in trying out something new. Hopefully that covers most of the things, but there's lots of creative ways. Sometimes they have supportive grandparents and a support system, which would be nice. I don't know what that's like, but um, there's so many creative ways to make it work if you really are wanting to give it a try.
That's actually been something that, has been really interesting for us at Mosaic, in the Mosaic Collective and the membership. How many grandparents are there? And it's
Mhm.
because they're kind of drop off, for
Yep.
single or dual income families.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
as as we wrap up, if you could give one piece of advice to a parent who is drawn to self-directed learning, unschooling, liberated learning, all the words, but worried about money, what's that one piece of advice you'd give them?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna cheat a little bit and I'm gonna give 2 pieces of advice. So 1, I would say that listen to your worry. Like, don't brush it away. Don't like, there is something in you that needs financial stability and it's worth listening to. And so, whatever that looks like for you, find that financial stability. So, pay off the debt first, build up an emergency fund. Like, your kid deserves a parent who's not stressed all the time about money. And I know personally, having been very anxious about money for a long time and having been in communities where you were told to just trust and, don't worry about it, just go for it, but those things weigh on you, like, having debt weighs on you, not knowing how you're gonna pay for a home repair or whatever, it weighs on you, and it will affect how you interact with your kids. So I would say listen to that worry and figure out how you can, really build up some kind of stability where you can be present with your kids and not be anxious about money. 2, I would say that decentering school is a huge, thing that you can do even if you're not able to not have your kids in school. I can send some links for Bonnie to drop in the, link section, but decentering school is just about saying school isn't that big of a deal. It doesn't it's a place that you go every day, and you can support your kids in what they wanna get out of it and what they see as valuable in it, not care about grades. I know that's, huge in our country to say that, but to say, "Hey, what are your goals for school? What do you wanna get better at? Like, how can I support that?" And yeah, just making it not the center of our world as it is in our culture. It's just very hard to do, but you can do that if you are not able to homeschool. And then you can pursue their interests outside of school. Like you can still be that self-directed education parent, even if you're not able to do that full time.
I so appreciate the practicality of your guidance. I really do. As we wrap up, thank you so much. As
Mhm.
I keep thinking about this, the economics of unschooling isn't just about money, it's about trade-offs, time, support, and you talked a lot about it, and the courage to build a life that fits your family's reality, not necessarily every family's reality. June, thank you for naming the practical side with so much honesty and care, and for sharing examples that help this feel doable, not idealized. If you're listening and you're in the middle of figuring out what you can afford, what you can shift, what you might try next, we hope this episode left you with a little more clarity and a little less loneliness. You don't have to solve everything at once. One small step matters. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for spending time with the Independent Learner Podcast. If today sparked new ideas or questions, you're not alone. You can find more conversations and support through the Mosaic Collective at mosaic-collective.org. We're glad you're here.
Resonate.